What if the system meant to protect you turned against you? One accusation, one verdict, and your future disappears. Innocence ignored, freedom stolen. Tonight, we examine 5 men who lost decades to convictions that never should have happened, and the truth that arrived far too late. Disclaimer: these are real cases. We present them respectfully, focusing on the facts and the impact of wrongful convictions. Some content may be unsettling. Viewer discretion is advised. On the night of June 6, 2004, in Wilmington, Illinois, 3-year-old Riley Fox was tucked onto the couch by her father, Kevin Fox. Her older brother slept nearby in a chair, while Kevin retreated to his room, unaware that within hours, his life would be turned upside down. The next morning, Kevin awoke to a nightmare. Riley was gone. Panic set in immediately. Searches were frantic, neighbors were questioned, and police were called. Hours later, Riley's lifeless body was discovered in a nearby forest preserve. The circumstances were horrifying, and the tragedy shook the small community to its core. In that moment, an innocent father's life became a story of suspicion, fear, and systemic failure. How quickly can tragedy cast doubt on those closest to it? And how does grief become entangled with suspicion when the world is desperate for answers? Kevin Fox, a grieving father, became the focus of suspicion. Under intense police pressure, he provided what investigators called a confession. 8 long months of confinement followed, as Kevin awaited a justice system that seemed determined to convict him, despite his insistence of innocence. Each day behind bars stretched the limits of endurance, his reputation, his freedom, and his dignity hanging by a thread. Yet truth, as it often does, would eventually emerge in the details overlooked. DNA evidence, previously dismissed or deemed inconclusive, would finally clear him. His attorney, Kathleen Zellner, fought relentlessly for new tests on the saliva found at the scene. When results returned, they excluded Kevin entirely, proving that the real perpetrator had been free all along, while Kevin languished behind bars. What does it mean for a society when innocent people can be ensnared so easily? How many others might suffer in silence while mistakes go unnoticed? The investigation itself was riddled with errors. Mud-stained shoes found at the scene bore the name of Scott Eby, a man on parole living just a mile away, but these crucial clues were ignored. Other evidence, including a neighboring home burglarized the same night, was overlooked entirely. Every missed opportunity deepened the injustice, turning what should have been a search for truth into a trial of convenience. In time, Kevin's family would receive a civil settlement against the Will County Sheriff's Office and the detectives responsible for the coerced confession, a recognition of wrongdoing. Yet nothing could return the months stolen from Kevin, nor undo the emotional scars. Eventually, DNA would reveal the true perpetrator: Scott Eby, a paroled convict with a troubling history. Eby confessed that he had broken into a neighbor's home, stolen a small amount of cash, and then entered the Fox residence through a broken back door. There, he found Riley and her brother asleep. In a moment of horrifying fixation, he abducted Riley and took her life. Eby would later be sentenced to life without parole, paying the ultimate price for a crime Kevin had almost been forced to carry. How does justice reconcile with the suffering of the innocent? And even when the guilty are punished, can the system ever truly restore what was taken from those wronged? Kevin Fox's ordeal is a stark reminder of how fragile justice can be when investigators prioritize expediency over evidence. A coerced confession, overlooked DNA, and ignored leads can transform a father into a suspect, turning a small community's nightmare into a personal hell. The psychological toll was immense. Months of incarceration, public suspicion, and the unshakable fear that freedom might never return. For the Fox family, the scars endured long after Kevin was released. Riley was gone, and the pain of losing her could never be undone. Kevin would later rebuild his life with a new family, but tragedy struck again in 2023 when he died in a car crash in Arkansas. His story, however, remains a testament. Wrongful convictions are not just legal errors. They are human tragedies, lives suspended in a system capable of both error and redemption. How many lives hang in balance while we trust the system unquestioningly? Injustice leaves a mark, but truth, when it arrives, restores not only freedom, but the dignity that was stolen along the way. For 44 years, Keith Bush said the same thing. "I didn't do it." In 1975, Bellport, New York, was shaken when 14-year-old Sharice Watson never returned home from a house party. She was later found in a vacant lot, her life taken in a brutal attack that horrified the community. Fear spread quickly, and within days, police arrested a 17-year-old teenager, Keith Bush. He signed a confession, but from the very beginning, he insisted it wasn't his words. He claimed police had beaten him, pressured him, and forced him to sign a statement he had never even read. How much weight should a confession carry if it was pulled from fear instead of truth? And how vulnerable is a teenager when authority demands answers? At trial, the jury believed the confession. Keith was convicted, yet cracks in the case began appearing almost immediately. A key witness who testified she saw Keith leave the party with Sharice later admitted she had never even been at the party. She recanted. Still, no new trial came. Years turned into decades. Prison became Keith's reality. From behind bars, he wrote letter after letter to lawyers, pleading for someone, anyone, to listen. Most went unanswered. But in 2006, a letter reached Adele Bernhard, a law professor running a clinic at Pace Law School. When she read the confession Keith had signed, something felt wrong. The wording didn't sound like a teenager. The details didn't match forensic findings. Even more troubling, DNA found beneath Sharice's fingernails did not match Keith. So why had this never changed the outcome? Bernhard dug deeper. She re-interviewed witnesses. She analyzed fiber evidence. She scrutinized police conduct. And through a Freedom of Information lawsuit, she uncovered something explosive. Police had interviewed another possible suspect, a young man named John W. Jones Jr., who had been at the same party. Jones had told officers he stumbled upon Sharice's body while leaving the area intoxicated. He also mentioned that a comb found near the scene resembled one he had lost. But none of this was disclosed to Keith's defense at trial. How does a jury weigh evidence it never sees? And what happens when crucial information is kept from the very process meant to protect fairness? In 2018, the newly elected Suffolk County District Attorney, Timothy Sini, established a Conviction Integrity Bureau to re-examine questionable cases. When Bernhard presented the hidden records, the office conducted a 9-month review. The findings were staggering. The alternate suspect had never been disclosed. The recanted witness had never actually attended the party. The confession did not align with physical evidence, and detectives involved had histories of questionable tactics. In court, the district attorney asked a judge to vacate the conviction. After 44 years, Keith Bush was exonerated. "I cannot give you that which was taken from you," the judge told him. but I can restore your presumption of innocence." By then, Keith was 62 years old. He had been released on parole years earlier, but was forced to register as a sex offender. He even returned to prison briefly over a technical parole violation. The label followed him. The stigma lingered. What does freedom truly mean when your name is still clouded by doubt? When asked how he contained his anger, Keith said he didn't. Instead, he created outlets. "One of the greatest outlets is love," he said. After 4 decades of pain, lost youth and stolen time, he chose love over bitterness. And perhaps that is the most haunting part of all. How many years can be taken from a person before justice feels hollow? And how many more names are waiting for someone to finally listen? If these stories keep you on edge, one click is all it takes. Comment, like, and subscribe to help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Guy Paul Moran became one of Canada's most well-known wrongful conviction cases after being accused of the 1984 assault and murder of his 9-year-old neighbor, Christine Jessup, in Queensville, Ontario. The Moran family had lived in the small community north of Toronto since 1978. Guy, one of 5 children, was known as quiet, musically gifted, and somewhat socially reserved. He played saxophone and clarinet in community bands, won awards for his performances, and spent much of his free time beekeeping. In October 1984, at age 25, he was living at home with his retired schoolteacher parents and working as a finishing sander at a furniture company. The Morans and the Jessups had a friendly neighborly relationship. On October 3, 1984, Christine returned home from school, stopped briefly at a nearby store to buy bubble gum, and was expected to meet a friend at a park. She never arrived. When her mother returned home later that afternoon, Christine's backpack was sitting inside the house, but Christine was gone. After searching and calling friends, police were contacted. Christine's body was discovered on December 31, 1984, nearly 3 months later. She had been assaulted and killed. The case devastated the small town and placed immense pressure on investigators to find the person responsible. Early in the investigation, police visited the Moran home. One officer later noted that Guy appeared to stare straight ahead during questioning, interpreting his reserved demeanor as suspicious. In early 1985, an FBI profile suggested the perpetrator was likely an intelligent white male between 19 and 26 who lived locally. That description, combined with Christine's mother referring to Moran as a weird-type guy who played the clarinet, intensified police focus on him. Surveillance began. In April 1985, police raided the Moran home and arrested him for Christine's murder. At his first trial in 1986, Moran was acquitted. However, the Crown appealed, arguing the judge had made a fundamental error in instructing the jury. The Court of Appeal ordered a new trial. After years of legal delays, a second trial began in 1992. It lasted 9 months, at the time, the longest murder trial in Canadian history. This time, Moran was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. Throughout the ordeal, Moran maintained his innocence. In January 1995, just days before his appeal was to be heard, advances in DNA testing produced decisive results. The biological evidence excluded Moran entirely. On January 23, 1995, the Court of Appeal for Ontario entered a directed verdict of acquittal. After nearly a decade under suspicion and years entangled in the justice system, Moran was formally cleared. A public inquiry later revealed serious investigative and prosecutorial failures, including non-disclosure of evidence and misrepresentation of forensic findings. The resulting Kaufman report became a landmark examination of wrongful convictions in Canada and led to significant reforms. Moran received $1.25 million in compensation from the Ontario government. His case also helped inspire the formation of the Association in Defence of the Wrongly Convicted, now known as Innocence Canada. For decades, Christine Jessop's true killer remained unidentified. On October 15, 2020, 36 years after her death, Toronto police announced that genetic genealogy and renewed DNA testing had identified Calvin Hoover as the source of the biological evidence. Hoover had been 28 years old in 1984 and was an associate of the Jessop family. He and his wife were socially connected to them, attending gatherings and maintaining friendly contact. Hoover died by suicide in 2015. The revelation confirmed what Moran had always insisted: he had nothing to do with Christine's death. The Moran case stands as a powerful reminder of how perception, profiling, and investigative tunnel vision can shape outcomes in tragic ways. A quiet personality was seen as suspicious. A community's grief turned toward the nearest available explanation, and it took scientific advancement to undo what the system had done. Christine Jessop's loss remains profound, but Guy Paul Moran's exoneration reshaped Canadian justice, proving that truth can surface, even decades later, when evidence is allowed to speak louder than assumption. Gary E. Dotson, born March 8, 1957, became one of the first Americans to be cleared of a criminal conviction through DNA testing. His case, which began in the late 1970s, exposed the devastating consequences of false testimony and flawed forensic practices, and marked a turning point in the use of science to correct wrongful convictions. In May 1979, Dotson was convicted of rape and aggravated kidnapping in Illinois and sentenced to 2 concurrent terms of 25 to 50 years in prison. The conviction rested almost entirely on the testimony of 16-year-old Kathleen Crowell Webb. An appellate court upheld the verdict in 1981. At the time of his arrest, Dotson was a high school dropout living with his mother and sisters in Country Club Hills, a modest Chicago suburb. He would spend the next 8 years behind bars. The allegation stemmed from July 9, 1977. A police officer found Crowell standing near a road with dirt-stained clothing. She claimed she had been abducted from a mall parking lot by 3 men and assaulted in a car. She later identified Dotson from a mugbook. Despite inconsistencies, she had described her attacker as clean-shaven, while Dotson wore a mustache. She claimed to have scratched her attacker, yet no such marks were found on him. Years later, the truth emerged. Crowell eventually admitted she had fabricated the story. Fearful of her foster parents discovering she had engaged in consensual sex with her boyfriend and worried about pregnancy, she created the assault narrative to obtain contraception. She later acknowledged that elements of her claim were inspired by a romance novel. In 1985, after becoming deeply religious, she confessed to her pastor and publicly recanted her testimony. Despite the recantation, courts initially refused to overturn Dotson's conviction, finding her new statement less credible than her original testimony. Media attention intensified. A televised clemency hearing before Illinois Governor James R. Thompson in May 1985 drew national attention and was widely described as sensational and circus-like. Graphic evidence was displayed publicly, and the proceedings became a national spectacle. Yet Dotson was sent back to prison. Public opinion increasingly shifted in his favor, but legal relief remained elusive. In 1988, advances in DNA testing provided what emotion and testimony could not: objective proof. Testing of biological evidence excluded Dotson and instead matched Crowell's former boyfriend, David Byrne, confirming her recantation. On August 14, 1989, prosecutors joined in dismissing the conviction, and all charges were dropped. Dotson became the second person in the United States exonerated through DNA evidence. In 2002, he received a full pardon from Illinois Governor George Ryan. The years between conviction and exoneration left lasting scars. After his initial release in 1985, Dotson married Camille Dardanes, who had supported him during hearings. They had a daughter in 1987, but later divorced. Dotson struggled financially and underwent treatment for alcoholism following his release. By the late 1980s, he was working construction and considering college courses to become a counselor. Crowell co-wrote a book titled Forgive Me and gave Dotson more than $17,000 in proceeds, keeping nothing beyond taxes. In return, he agreed not to sue her. She later settled in New Hampshire, raising 4 children. Before her death from breast cancer in 2008, her husband stated that once she confronted what she had done, she felt compelled to come forward, fully expecting severe consequences. Dotson, by contrast, largely withdrew from public life. By 2008, he was described as living quietly in the south suburbs of Chicago, wanting to move beyond the notoriety that had defined much of his adult life. His case remains a landmark in criminal justice history. It demonstrated how mistaken testimony, even when delivered convincingly, can outweigh inconsistencies and physical evidence. It also showed how difficult it can be for courts to accept recantations even when supported by science. Most importantly, Gary Dotson's exoneration helped establish DNA testing as a powerful safeguard against wrongful conviction. His ordeal underscored a sobering truth. Justice systems depend not only on procedure, but on humility, the willingness to admit when a grave mistake has been made. This is the final story in our series, and perhaps the most staggering of them all. Ricky Jackson was just 18 years old when his life was taken from him, not by a bullet, but by a courtroom verdict. In 1975, Jackson, along with brothers Wiley and Ronnie Bridgman, was convicted of murdering Cleveland businessman Harold Franks. All 3 were sentenced to death. Decades later, they would be fully exonerated. By then, nearly an entire lifetime had passed. On May 19, 1975, Franks was attacked outside a neighborhood grocery store on Cleveland's East Side while delivering money orders. He was assaulted and fatally shot. His briefcase disappeared. The perpetrators fled in a green car that was never found. No weapon was ever recovered. No physical evidence tied anyone to the crime. Instead, the case rested almost entirely on the testimony of a 12-year-old boy, Eddie Vernon. Vernon told police he had witnessed Jackson and the Bridgman brothers commit the crime. Based on his statement alone, the 3 young men, all from the neighborhood and with no serious criminal history, were arrested, tried, and convicted. Jackson was identified as the shooter. Wiley was accused of driving the getaway car. Ronnie was said to have participated in the attack. There were no fingerprints, no recovered vehicle, no gun, no briefcase, just the word of a child. How much weight should a single testimony carry when a person's life is on the line? And what happens when that testimony is wrong? In 1977 and 1978, Appeals courts ruled that juries in their cases had received incorrect instructions. Their death sentences were commuted to life imprisonment. But freedom did not follow. Ronnie Bridgman, who later changed his name to Kwame Ajamu, was paroled in 2003 after 28 years. Wiley Bridgman had been paroled in 2002, but struggled with the psychological toll of incarceration and was later returned to prison for a parole violation. Ricky Jackson was never granted parole. He remained behind bars. Years turned into decades. In 2011, a journalist re-examined the case and raised serious doubts about the evidence. In 2013, the now adult Eddie Vernon recanted. Speaking to a minister while hospitalized, he admitted he had not actually witnessed the murder. In a sworn affidavit, he later stated that police had pressured and coached him. He said the school bus he was riding was a block away from the scene, too far to see what happened. At a 2014 court hearing, Vernon described the threats he faced from detectives and the burden of guilt he had carried since childhood. On November 21, 2014, Ricky Jackson and Wiley Bridgman walked out of court as free men. Jackson had spent 39 years in prison, believed to be the longest term served by an exoneree in U.S. history. He was 57 years old. When asked about Vernon, Jackson did not express anger. "He's a grown man today," he said. "He was just a boy back then." In December 2014, Kwame Ajamu's conviction was also overturned, fully clearing all three men. Financial settlements followed. Jackson received millions in compensation from the state of Ohio and later from the city of Cleveland. The Bridgman brothers also received multi-million-dollar settlements. In 2020, the city agreed to pay $18 million collectively to resolve their lawsuits. But what does compensation truly restore? Lost birthdays, lost parents, lost chances to build careers, families, futures. Wiley Bridgman passed away in 2021. His later years included both moments of rebuilding and personal struggles. Ronnie, now Kwame Ajamu, has spoken publicly about forgiveness and resilience. Jackson has described prison as a place that nearly erased his youth entirely. Their case exposed how fragile justice can be when it relies on uncorroborated testimony, especially from a child under pressure. It also showed how difficult it can be to undo a wrongful conviction once the system has made up its mind. 3 teenagers entered prison facing execution. 3 older men walked out decades later into a world transformed. The question lingers: how many others are still waiting for someone to listen? Across this series, we've seen 5 names, 5 lives derailed, 5 reminders that justice is not infallible. For every name we know, there may be countless others still waiting in silence, hoping someone finally listens. Wrongful convictions do not just steal freedom, they steal time. And time is the one thing no court, no settlement, no apology can ever fully return. If you believe these stories matter, make sure you're subscribed. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And tell us in the comments, which case stayed with you the most? Because conversations keep these names alive. Stay curious, stay safe, and never stop asking questions. In the realm of the missing, a cold trail is frustrating for everyone. An eyewitness sighting is supposed to be the crucial lead that breaks a case, offering a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness. But what about a trail of ghost sightings? In the perplexing stories we'll cover today, a glimpse of the lost didn't bring closure. It created a web of contradictions that made the search nearly impossible. These are not just people who vanished. They are people who were seen in their absence, leaving behind a haunting echo of what might have been. A quick note for our listeners. This episode contains descriptions of sensitive and potentially disturbing events. Viewer discretion is advised. Let's begin with a case that baffled investigators and continues to spark debate to this day. Joan Risch, October 24, 1961. The picture of suburban tranquility in Lincoln, Massachusetts, was shattered. Joan Risch, a 31-year-old wife and mother, vanished from her home, leaving behind a scene that was both disturbing and deeply confusing. But to understand the events of that day, we need to glimpse into the shadows of Joan's early life. Born Joan Carolyn Bard, her childhood was marked by profound tragedy. At the tender age of 8, she lost both her parents in a fire deemed suspicious. Imagine the indelible mark such a devastating event would leave on a young mind. Subsequently adopted, Joan's life took another dark turn, with later reports suggesting she endured childhood sexual abuse at the hands of her stepfather. Could these early traumas have played a silent role in the events of that autumn day in 1961? On that Tuesday morning, life in the Risch household appeared normal. Her husband, Martin, left early for a business trip. Joan saw her children, 4-year-old Lillian and 2-year-old David, through breakfast. She even took David to a neighbor's house before heading out with Lillian for a dental appointment. A seemingly ordinary morning, but by late afternoon, the ordinary had devolved into the nightmarish. A neighbor, Barbara Barker, became concerned when Lillian returned home alone, uttering the chilling words, "Mommy is gone, and the kitchen is covered with red paint." What Barbara found inside was a scene that defied easy explanation. Blood was smeared on the walls and floor. An overturned table hinted at a sudden disruption. The telephone, ripped from the wall, lay discarded in a wastebasket that had been inexplicably moved to the center of the room. But amidst this disturbing scene, there was no sign of Joan. Adding to the bewilderment, investigators found a relatively small amount of blood, not enough to suggest a life-threatening injury. And despite the visible smears, there were no bloody footprints. Had someone meticulously cleaned the floor, or was the source of the blood different than a struggle? The mystery deepened with the discovery that Joan had recently borrowed several books from the local library. Not just any books, but titles focusing on unsolved murders and disappearances. One book even contained a case with eerie similarities to her own. Did this point to a carefully orchestrated plan? Had Joan staged her disappearance, perhaps seeking an escape from a life we can only speculate about given her troubled past? But then came the sightings. Later that same afternoon, multiple people reported seeing a woman walking along nearby roads. A woman matching Joan's description, wearing similar clothing and with a scarf tied oddly around her chin. One witness even described seeing blood running down her legs as she walked along the median of a busy highway, cradling something to her stomach. Was this the disoriented Joan, injured and wandering? Or were these simply tragic coincidences, the mind playing tricks in the wake of a local tragedy? The sightings offered a flicker of hope, a sense that Joan might still be alive. But they also raised a host of unsettling questions. Why was she walking in that direction? What was she carrying or clutching? And why didn't anyone stop to help a woman who appeared so distressed? The trail of blood in the Risch home led to the driveway, ending near Joan's car. Had she gotten into another vehicle? Was she alone? Was she coerced? Despite extensive searches and countless theories, Joan Risch vanished without a trace. The sightings remain a haunting, unconfirmed chapter in a mystery that continues to baffle. What do you make of a case with so much apparent evidence, yet so few concrete answers? Our next case takes us south, to the humid bayous of Louisiana, where a pillar of the community vanished, only to seemingly reappear in the most unsettling of ways. 50-year-old Adam John, A.J. Bro, was a fixture in Houma. A salesman at the local clothing store for over 3 decades, he was known as a dependable and friendly man. But A.J. had faced his own battles, having conquered a long struggle with alcoholism. By 1991, he was 8 years sober and deeply involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, even serving as the secretary for the local chapter. His past struggles had made him empathetic and dedicated to helping others find sobriety. He had rebuilt relationships with his daughters and had recently come out to his family as gay, a revelation met with acceptance. On the evening of August 28, 1991, A.J. attended his regular AA meeting. Afterwards, he stopped at a convenience store to buy a quart of milk. He told the cashier he was heading home to his daughter, Tanya, but he never made it. The next morning, Tanya reported him missing. 2 days later, A.J.'s car was found abandoned in a park across the street from the AA club. Inside were his wallet and checkbooks. In the trunk, a bank bag containing $165 in AA funds. His keys and the milk were gone. Strangely, despite purchasing gas just hours before, the tank was nearly empty. There were no signs of a struggle, but A.J.'s daughter, Melissa, felt in her gut that something terrible had happened. It simply wasn't like her father to abandon his life and his responsibilities. The disappearance of A.J., a man so dedicated to his sobriety and his community, sent ripples of shock through Houma. And then came the reports, the unsettling whispers of sightings that only deepened the mystery. On the very day A.J.'s car was found, a longtime friend, Kenneth Pellegrin, claimed he saw A.J. using a payphone outside another convenience store. But this wasn't the A.J. he knew. He was wearing unfamiliar disheveled clothing and acting nervously. What made this sighting even more bizarre was the presence of a red compact car parked nearby, occupied by 3 men who seemed to be watching A.J. When Kenneth left the store, both A.J. and the red car were gone. Later that same day, another acquaintance, living on a rural route outside of town, reported seeing a red compact car drive by, carrying A.J. and 3 other men. The witness waved, but A.J., always known for his friendly demeanor, did not wave back. What was happening to A.J.? Who were these men? And why was he acting so out of character? These sightings painted a disturbing picture. Was A.J. in trouble? Had he fallen in with the wrong crowd? Or was something far more sinister at play? The fact that 2 separate witnesses who knew A.J. well reported seeing him with 3 unidentified men in the same type of vehicle is undeniably chilling. Weeks later, a woman 30 miles away in Lockport claimed she saw a man resembling A.J., looking unkempt and smelling of alcohol, trying to sell frozen fish from a van. Was this a desperate A.J., having relapsed and fallen on hard times? Or was this a cruel trick of the light, a resemblance that offered false hope? His family vehemently denied that A.J. would break his 8 years of sobriety and simply disappear. Despite these perplexing sightings, A.J. Bureau has never been found. Was he a victim of foul play, as his daughters fear? Or did he, for reasons unknown, choose to walk away from the life he had rebuilt? What do you make of these fleeting glimpses of a man who seemed to vanish into thin air, only to reappear in the most unsettling and contradictory circumstances? It's at this point in the video that I want to take a moment to thank you, our incredible community. As of the making of this video, We've reached a milestone of 211 subscribers, and that's all thanks to you. Your support is what makes Merc Files possible, and we couldn't be more grateful. Please don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who loves a good mystery, and of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Now, let's get back to the Merc. 16-year-old Misty Nicole Murray vanished from her hometown of Goderic, Ontario. Misty was a typical teenager in many ways, but she was also at a pivotal point in her young life. Adopted at the age of 4, she was making plans to finally visit her biological mother, a significant journey of self-discovery. She had even packed a suitcase and saved $200 for the trip. On that day, Misty attended school. She even attempted to call her mother in the afternoon, though she didn't leave a message. This seemingly innocuous act would become a haunting reminder of a life abruptly interrupted. After school, Misty was never seen again. The days following her disappearance were filled with a flurry of reported sightings, each offering a fragile thread of hope that Misty was still alive. A friend claimed to have spoken to her in a shop the very next day. 3 teenagers reported seeing her walking along a highway between towns. Another teenager believed they saw her at a local fair, wearing her distinctive green Seaforth band jacket. These initial sightings, however, quickly faded into uncertainty. Over the next 2 weeks, more than 20 sightings were reported in London, Ontario, a larger city some distance away. But none of these could be confirmed and were ultimately deemed not credible by investigators. The promising leads dissolved like morning mist. Then, the case took a dark and shocking turn. Several months after Misty vanished, police charged her adoptive father, Steve Murray, with her murder. The community was stunned. But in 1997, after a trial that gripped the town, Steve Murray was acquitted by a jury. The defense argued vehemently that the police investigation was flawed, even presenting 13 witnesses who placed Steve elsewhere at the time police alleged he was disposing of Misty's body. Despite the acquittal, the shadow of suspicion lingered, a heavy burden for a family already reeling from the loss of their daughter. Adding another layer of tragedy, years later in 2002, a glimmer of hope emerged from an unexpected place. Vancouver, British Columbia, thousands of miles away. A young woman calling herself Mallory Morrigan Lane, living on the streets and accessing youth services, bore a striking resemblance to what Misty Murray would look like at age 21. Social workers who interacted with Mallory were 99% positive she was Misty. The resemblance was uncanny, down to a distinctive gap between her front teeth. Even more compelling were stories Mallory shared about her background, details that mirrored Misty's early life in Nova Scotia and her biological mother's experiences. But when confronted with the possibility that she was Misty Murray, Mallory became hysterical and fled. She refused to provide valid identification and eventually stopped seeking social benefits rather than reveal her true identity. The hope of a resolution, of finally finding Misty alive, was once again snatched away. Misty Murray has never been found. Did the initial sightings offer a genuine glimpse of a runaway teenager? Was the Vancouver sighting a miraculous discovery that tragically slipped through their fingers? Or was the truth far darker, hidden beneath the surface of a seemingly peaceful town? What do you make of a case where the most promising sighting ended in fear and flight, leaving a family forever searching for answers? Our exploration of deceptive sightings continues in the breathtaking landscapes of Ecuador, where a young man with a bright future vanished on a seemingly innocuous hike, sparking a series of fleeting images that offered no solace. June 16, 2013. For the Riga family, a vacation to Baños, Ecuador, should have been a time of celebration. Their son, August, had just graduated as valedictorian of his high school class and earned a prestigious Fulbright scholarship. He was a young man full of promise, and this trip was a well-deserved reward. Baños, a popular tourist destination, was considered relatively safe. On that fateful day, August, his parents, and his younger brother went for a hike on a local trail, a loop that should have taken only a few hours. August, full of youthful energy, walked ahead of his family. But just 10 minutes later, when his parents and brother reached a pavilion at the top of the mountain, August was gone. He wasn't there. He wasn't at their hotel when they returned. He had no money or passport with him. Local authorities, the Ecuadorian military, and even the US State Department launched an immediate search, but no trace of August was found. His family insisted that their intelligent son, who even spoke fluent Spanish, could not have simply gotten lost on a well-marked trail visible from their hotel. Initially, authorities considered the possibility of a kidnapping, but no ransom demand ever materialized. Interpol circulated August's photo throughout Latin America, but the vast search yielded nothing. And then came the whispers, the unconfirmed sightings that offered a cruel kind of hope. Several days after his disappearance, a witness reported seeing someone matching August's description in the back of a pickup truck heading towards the Amazon region. This sighting fueled the terrifying possibility that August had been abducted. But why? He had no valuables on him. Who would want to take him, and for what purpose? The trail of that sighting went cold. Later, the family spoke of other credible sightings, but the locations were kept secret by investigators, presumably to protect witnesses and avoid alerting potential captors. These fleeting glimpses of August offered a painful paradox, the hope that he was alive, battling against the agonizing reality that he remained missing. Years have passed since August Riga vanished. The vibrant young man who stood at the cusp of a brilliant future remains lost. Was he a victim of a crime, spirited away into the vast Amazon? Did he suffer a tragic accident on the mountain, his body yet undiscovered? Or did one of those unconfirmed sightings hold the key to a truth that remains elusive? What do you make of a case where a disappearance in broad daylight on a popular trail leads to a single, unsettling sighting, pointing towards an entirely different fate? Our final journey into the deceptive nature of sightings takes us to the bustling streets of New York City and the quiet shores of New Jersey, in the case of a brilliant woman whose life took a sudden, heartbreaking turn. 35-year-old Renee Lamanna was by all accounts exceptional. By the age of 20, she had earned both bachelor's and master's degrees. She served in the Peace Corps, mastering French and Arabic. In 1994, she was studying nuclear medicine technology, but beneath this veneer of achievement, Renee was struggling. The end of a decade-long relationship with an Afghan immigrant taxi driver triggered a severe mental health crisis. On January 8, 1994, Renee was found wandering the streets of Queens, New York, in a disoriented state, barefoot and in her nightclothes. Following a psychiatric evaluation, she was taken to her sister's home in Ocean City, New Jersey. But just an hour after arriving, Renee, for no apparent reason, ran out into the freezing temperatures, still inadequately dressed. The last confirmed sighting of Renee was later that evening at a bar in Summers Point, New Jersey, where she was reportedly acting strangely. Her bathrobe was found discarded just 2 blocks away. A bloodhound tracked her scent between 2 nearby homes, But the trail ended there. Had she been offered shelter? Had she gotten into a car? Or had she simply succumbed to the elements? Then came the truly unsettling sightings. Months later, in May 1995, there was an unconfirmed report of her being seen in New Jersey. But the sighting that sent chills down investigators' spines came later that year. Renee was reportedly seen in a Manhattan subway station, looking at a missing person flyer bearing her own face. This haunting image fueled the theory that Renee was suffering from a dissociative fugue, a rare psychiatric disorder involving sudden, unexpected travel away from home or the workplace, accompanied by amnesia for one's identity or other autobiographical information. If this was the case, Renee might be alive, wandering, unaware of who she truly was. Over the years, numerous unconfirmed sightings of a woman resembling Renee were reported across the eastern United States. Then, in 2014, a promising lead emerged from Asheville, North Carolina. A witness took several photographs of a woman who looked remarkably like an age-progressed image of Renee. This woman even told people she was looking for her family and gave a police officer a similar alias. Hope surged that Renee had finally been found. Tragically, fingerprints confirmed that the woman was not Renee. The hope evaporated, leaving behind the bitter taste of disappointment. Renee's parents passed away without ever knowing what happened to their daughter. Her sister still holds on to the hope that one day Renee will be found. Was Renee a victim of foul play after leaving the bar that cold night? Or did she, as those subway and out-of-state sightings suggest, embark on an unintentional journey, her past and identity lost to her? What do you make of a case where the most compelling sightings point not to a crime, but to a heartbreaking loss of self? The sightings in these cases, instead of providing clarity, have only deepened the murk, leaving us to ponder the fragile nature of memory and the enduring mystery of human disappearance. Thank you for joining us on Murk Files. If you found this video intriguing, please consider giving it a like, sharing it with a friend, and subscribing to the channel for more mysteries. If you have any information about the cases discussed in today's episode, please contact the authorities. Your tip, no matter how small it may seem, could be the key to bringing closure to these families. Stay curious, stay safe. There's a specific kind of cold that chills you to the bone, the profound absence left when a human life simply evaporates. One moment, they're here, a vibrant thread woven into the fabric of daily life. The next, an inexplicable tear, leaving no trace, no definitive reason, and no final goodbye. Just the chilling clarity that someone real is utterly, inexplicably gone. These are the narratives that refuse to fade, whispered as haunting elegies to lives consumed by a mysterious, unknowable force. They are the ultimate vanishing acts, leaving behind an agonizing, unyielding void. Tonight we journey into this unsettling territory, exploring 10 such mysteries, each a stark, detailed look into the inexplicable voids that defy all explanation and relentlessly torment the living. Before we proceed, a crucial note. This video is for educational purposes, meticulously researched to explore these complex cases. We approach every story with the deepest respect for the victims and their grieving families, acknowledging the profound pain that echoes through these unsolved mysteries. Our journey into the vanished begins in a seemingly idyllic setting, a sunny beach town in Australia, where childhood innocence was shattered by an unspeakable void. It was Australia Day, January 26, 1966, in Adelaide. Jane, age 9, Anna, 7, and Grant, 4, the Beaumont children, set out for a short walk to the beach, just a few blocks from their home. A simple, everyday outing. They were meant to return by noon. They never did. Witnesses saw them on the beach, seemingly talking to a tall, fair-haired man. Later, they were seen buying pasties from a bakery, appearing surprisingly happy given their usual shyness with strangers. The man was still nearby. A local postman saw them rushing home, well past their expected return time, without their beach towels. This fleeting glimpse, however, would be the last confirmed sighting of the Beaumont children. Their parents launched a desperate search. Police combed the area. Theories emerged. A new, unknown friend, a sinister abductor. Despite one of the largest police investigations in Australian history, massive public appeals, and sightings reported for years, not a trace of Jane, Anna, or Grant was ever found. Their bicycles, their swimsuits, their very presence simply evaporated. A quiet suburban street became the stage for an enduring horror. What power could make 3 children disappear without a whisper, leaving behind only a chilling absence? On February 9th, 2004, a college student named Maura Murray sent a series of cryptic emails. One to her professors about a family emergency, another to her boyfriend that read, "I love you, babe. I was going to call you tonight." Then, she vanished. Maura, a nursing student from the University of Massachusetts Amherst, drove north into New Hampshire's desolate White Mountains. Her car, a black Saturn, was later found crashed into a snowbank on Route 112, close to Woodsville. A passing bus driver stopped, offering help, but Maura refused, stating she had already called AAA. Another local also offered assistance. By the time a police officer arrived just minutes later, Maura Murray was gone. Her car was locked. A crumpled soda bottle was inside, a stain was on the ceiling, and some of her belongings were inside. Her debit card was untouched, and her phone was never used again. The footprints in the snow stopped abruptly. No one saw her walk away. No one saw her get into another vehicle. Did she succumb to the elements? Did she simply walk away from her life? Or did something far more sinister befall her on that isolated, snow-laden road? The wilderness held its secrets tightly that night, offering no explanation for Maura's sudden, total disappearance. Jennifer Kesey was a vibrant, successful financial analyst in Orlando, Florida, living a life of ambition and routine. On January 24th, 2006, she called her family, seemingly in good spirits. The next morning, she didn't show up for work. Her bed was unmade, a towel on the floor, wet clothes in the washing machine, signs of a morning interrupted. Jennifer Kesey had simply vanished. Her car, a black Chevrolet Malibu, was found 2 days later, parked at an apartment complex about a mile from her home. The chilling discovery wasn't just the car, but what it offered, the single, tantalizing piece of visual evidence in her disappearance. Security cameras at the complex captured a figure, indistinct and obscured by fences, parking Jennifer's car and then walking away. The person's identity remains unknown, their face deliberately hidden from view. There were no signs of forced entry at her apartment, no struggle, and no ransom note. It was as if she walked out her door and was instantly erased. Every theory has been exhausted, every lead pursued to a dead end. Was she targeted? Was it a random act? The figure on the grainy surveillance video remains a spectral guardian of Jennifer's last known moments, an infuriatingly close brush with the truth that continues to mock investigators and torment her family. April 1st, 2006 was no April Fool's joke for the family of Brian Schaffer. A promising medical student at Ohio State University. He went out with friends to the Ugly Tuna Saloona, a bar in Columbus's Arena District. He was seen on security footage entering the bar, but he was never seen leaving. The bar had only one public entrance exit point captured by surveillance cameras. Brian was caught on camera entering with friends around 1:15 a.m. His friends left at closing, expecting Brian to meet them, but he never did. The footage was meticulously reviewed. Every person entering and exiting was accounted for, except Brian. He simply wasn't there. It was as if he walked into a void, defying the laws of physics. The mystery deepened. His cell phone, initially active, ceased all pings hours after he was last seen, never to connect again. His credit cards are untouched. His life, poised for a future in medicine, abruptly halted. Was there a hidden exit? Did he somehow slip past the cameras, perhaps in disguise, or with someone else? Or did something unthinkable happen inside the bar before he could even attempt to leave? Brian Schaffer's disappearance remains a chilling testament to the notion that sometimes people can vanish without a trace, even under the watchful eye of technology. These cases remind us how fragile life can be. It's your curiosity and commitment to truth that keeps Merc Files going. We've hit an amazing milestone, and it's all thanks to you. To our incredible 132 subscribers, thank you for your support. If you haven't joined the Merc Files family yet, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement helps us bring these vital mysteries to light. In January 2013, Canadian tourist Elisa Lam checked into the infamous Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, a place with a dark, storied past. Just days later, she disappeared. Her last known moments were captured on a chilling hotel elevator surveillance video, a disturbing sequence that went viral worldwide. The footage shows Elisa behaving erratically. She presses multiple floor buttons, steps in and out of the elevator, peers nervously into the hallway, and makes strange, almost frantic gestures. The elevator doors, for unexplained reasons, remain open for an unusually long time, only to close after she finally leaves the frame. It's a performance of profound distress, leaving countless questions about who or what she was reacting to. Weeks later, hotel guests began complaining about low water pressure and discolored water. On February 19th, a maintenance worker investigating the complaints made a horrifying discovery. Elisa Lam's naked body floating inside one of the large water cisterns on the hotel's rooftop. Access to the roof was supposedly locked and alarmed, requiring staff keys. How did she get up there? How did she get into the tank? The official ruling was accidental drowning, with bipolar disorder as a contributing factor. But the circumstances, the video, and the sheer impossibility of her movements left a lingering, unsettling question. Was Elisa Lam truly alone in her final terrifying moments? The call came in the early hours of August 9th, 2013. Brandon Lawson, a 26-year-old father from San Angelo, Texas, had run out of gas on a desolate stretch of Highway 277. But his frantic 911 call painted a picture far more terrifying than a simple roadside breakdown. "I'm in the middle of a field," he stammered, pulled some guys over, the guys chasing. And here, the audio becomes unclear or indistinct. "To the woods, please hurry." Brandon had argued with his girlfriend, possibly under the influence of drugs, and was heading to his father's house. His brother, Kyle, drove out with gas, speaking to Brandon on the phone. Brandon sounded out of breath, claiming he was bleeding, and chillingly said, "I can see you, I'm right here," when Kyle arrived at the truck. But neither Kyle nor a responding deputy could see him. An active arrest warrant led Kyle to believe Brandon might be hiding from the police, a decision he would forever regret. For nearly a decade, Brandon Lawson's fate remained one of Texas's most haunting cold cases. His truck was found abandoned. His phone ceased all activity shortly after his desperate call. The wilderness offered no clues. Then, in February 2022, a search party located clothing near his last known location, leading to the discovery of human remains. On Christmas Day, 2024, DNA results finally confirmed the grim truth. The remains belonged to Brandon Lawson. The mystery of what happened to him on that dark highway and who or what he was running from endures, a final, horrifying testament to his last desperate words. Lars Mittank, a 28-year-old German man, was on holiday with friends in Golden Sands, Bulgaria, in July 2014. The trip was enjoyable until the last day, when a bar fight left him with an alleged injured jaw and ruptured eardrum. His friends flew home, but Lars, advised not to fly, stayed behind, checking into a cheap hotel near Varna Airport. That's when the paranoia began. He called his mother, whispering that people were trying to kill or rob him, begging her to cancel his credit cards. Hotel CCV captured him pacing frantically, looking out windows and hiding in an elevator. The next morning, July 8th, he headed to Varna Airport, hoping to finally fly home. At the airport, he consulted with a doctor who found him nervous and erratic. The doctor stated Lars was fine to fly. But then, a construction worker entered the office. Lars immediately began to tremble, yelling, "I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here." He then fled, abandoning all his luggage, his wallet, phone, and passport. Airport security cameras captured his final terrifying moments, sprinting out of the terminal, climbing a fence, and vanishing into an adjacent forest. He was never seen again. Was it a reaction to the antibiotic he was prescribed, known for rare psychotic side effects, or was an undiagnosed mental breakdown unfolding? Was there someone truly after him, as he believed? The raw footage of Lars Mittank's desperate flight became one of YouTube's most watched missing person videos, a stark, unsettling window into a mind consumed by terror, leaving us to wonder, what horrors did Lars Mittank truly see that day? June 7th, 1992, should have been a day of celebration in Springfield, Missouri. Susie Streeter, 19, and Stacy McCall, 18, had just graduated high school. After parties, they decided to spend the night at Susie's mother, Cheryl Levitt's, home. The next morning, all three women were gone. Friends and family arrived at the house to find the front door unlocked. Inside, the family dog Cinnamon was agitated. The only sign of disturbance was a shattered porch light globe. Everything else was left behind. Cars, purses, money, keys, even cigarettes and makeup. It was as if they had simply vanished into thin air. Adding to the chilling void, Stacy's mother, Janice, discovered a strange message on the answering machine when she called police from the home, a message she accidentally erased while fumbling with the unfamiliar device. Police later confirmed it was not a prank call and believed it contained a crucial clue. Despite extensive searches, thousands of tips, and even the bizarre claims of a convicted kidnapper, Robert Craig Cox, who insisted he knew they were murdered and buried, the fate of the Springfield Three remains unknown. Were they victims of a random home invasion, or was someone known to them responsible? The lack of struggle, the pristine nature of the scene, and that lost voicemail haunt this case, leaving behind an agonizing silence in the heart of a community. On September 20th, 1988, 19-year-old Tara Calico left her home in Belen, New Mexico, for her daily bike ride along State Road 47. Her mother, Patty Dole, had stopped riding with Tara due to feeling stalked by a motorist, even suggesting Tara carry mace. Tara dismissed the idea. When she didn't return by noon, a frantic search began. All that was found were pieces of her Sony Walkman and a cassette tape scattered along the road. Tara's desperate attempt, her mother believed, to mark her trail. Almost a year later, on June 15, 1989, a horrifying discovery surfaced in a Port St. Joe, Florida, parking lot. A Polaroid photo of an unidentified young woman and boy, both gagged with black duct tape and seemingly bound. The woman who found it said a white windowless Toyota van had been parked there. When the photo was broadcast, family friends believed the woman resembled Tara. Patty Dole, seeing a scar on the woman's leg identical to Tara's and a copy of Tara's favorite book nearby, was convinced it was her daughter. International analyses were split. Some confirmed it was Tara, others disagreed, and the FBI was inconclusive. While the boy in the photo was later identified as another missing child whose remains were found elsewhere, the image of the gagged young woman remains a chilling, unconfirmed link to Tara's fate. Despite her being legally declared dead in 1998, with her death ruled a homicide and recent claims of a potential breakthrough with sealed warrants, Tara Calico's disappearance remains one of the most agonizing and visually disturbing unsolved mysteries. What truly happened on that bike path? And who took that horrific photograph? Ray Gricar was a respected figure, the district attorney of Center County, Pennsylvania, for 2 decades. On April 15, 2005, just months before his planned retirement, he called his girlfriend to say he was driving through Brush Valley. He never returned. His vanishing would become one of the most perplexing cases involving a public official. The next day, Gricar's distinctive red Mini Cooper was found abandoned in a Lewisburg antique store parking lot. Inside was his cell phone, but no wallet, keys, or laptop. The location was eerily similar to where his brother's car was found years earlier when his brother died by suicide. This raised immediate questions, but unlike his brother, Gricar had no known history of depression and was looking forward to retirement. Months later, his county-issued laptop was recovered from the Susquehanna River, but the hard drive was missing. 2 months after that, a hard drive believed to be his was found on the riverbank, badly damaged. Investigators later discovered that before his disappearance, internet searches for how to wreck a hard drive and water damage to a notebook computer had been performed on a home computer he shared with his girlfriend. Was this a meticulously planned disappearance, a tragic suicide, or something far more sinister? Gricar had made powerful enemies over his career, and his prior decision not to prosecute Jerry Sandusky years before his disappearance would later fuel intense speculation. Ray Gricar's disappearance is a labyrinth of baffling clues, hinting at a truth perpetually just out of reach. 10 stories, 10 profound absences, from the sun-drenched beaches of Australia to the desolate highways of Texas, from the bustling heart of Los Angeles to the quiet streets of Pennsylvania. These cases rip at our fundamental sense of security. They remind us that sometimes, despite every effort, every piece of technology, and every dedicated investigator, the truth remains elusive. The perpetrators walk free, the victims remain lost, and the families are left in an eternal limbo of unanswered questions. At Merck Files, we believe that keeping these stories alive is crucial. It honors the vanished, supports their families, and perhaps, just perhaps, one day, a detail, a memory, or a new piece of evidence will surface, finally illuminating the darkness. If you found yourself glued to these stories, if these questions linger in your mind, then you are part of the community that understands the true weight of the unsolved. Help us continue to shed light on the shadows. Like this video, share it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Merc Files. Your engagement keeps these vital conversations going. Stay curious, stay safe. In every quiet town, behind the familiar smiles of neighbors and the gentle hum of daily routines, sometimes hide dark secrets that wait for decades to come to light. This is the story of Edna Schubert, a beloved grandmother from Bay Shore in Suffolk County, whose tragic death in December 2003 shocked a community and went unsolved for over 20 years, until breakthrough forensic evidence reawakened hope for justice. It was a cold winter evening when Bay Shore's routine charm was shattered. Neighbors exchanged greetings and local shops busied themselves for the season. Yet behind the calm, an unthinkable horror unfolded inside Edna's modest, well-kept home, a sanctuary that once echoed with laughter and love. One fateful night, a concerned neighbor, disturbed by strange, unsettling sounds, raced to alert the authorities. When the police arrived, they discovered a scene that defied comprehension. The home had been transformed into a tableau of chaos, a place where violence had ripped apart the peaceful life that the 88-year-old Edna had known. Edna had been brutally beaten to death. The shock rippled through the community, leaving everyone to ask, how could someone so gentle and beloved fall victim to such unspeakable violence? As investigators descended on the scene, the house itself began to tell its own tragic story. Picture a modest aging home with a broken window, a front door left ajar, and unmistakable signs of forced entry. Clear evidence that the crime had taken place within these walls. Inside, personal belongings lay scattered in disarray, each item a silent testament to a life filled with warmth and care, now brutally disrupted. Forensic teams worked tirelessly, meticulously combing every inch of the house. They captured early forensic photographs that documented the devastation, collected DNA samples, and preserved every fragment of evidence with the hope that one day, science would bridge the gap between mystery and justice. As you absorb these details, ask yourself, were we too slow to respond? Could a more urgent investigation have unearthed the truth sooner? Despite the immediate mobilization of law enforcement and forensic experts, the early investigation was plagued by challenges. Local officials faced harsh criticism for what many saw as a lack of prompt action, while sensational and conflicting media headlines deepened the public's frustration. Each passing day raised more questions than answers, and the community was left clinging to hope amid growing despair. How do you react when the system meant to protect you appears to falter at the most critical moment? As months turned into years, the Edna Schubert case gradually slipped into the grim category of cold cases. The DNA samples collected on that tragic night were stored away like silent sentinels, waiting for a breakthrough that seemed almost unattainable. For over 2 decades, Edna's family and neighbors were tormented by the lingering question: who could commit such a horrific act against someone as dearly loved as the 88-year-old Edna? In that prolonged silence, every stored sample became a symbol of potential justice, a promise that someday the truth might finally emerge. Then, in early 2025, a seismic shift occurred in forensic science. With groundbreaking advancements in DNA analysis and digital evidence processing, modern laboratories became capable of re-examining long-forgotten clues with unparalleled precision. Imagine a state-of-the-art forensic lab buzzing with activity. Digital screens aglow with intricate DNA sequences, experts poring over data, and powerful algorithms sifting through enormous criminal databases. In this environment, the long-dormant DNA samples from that fateful December night were reanalyzed with renewed determination. The results were nothing short of astonishing. The evidence pointed unequivocally to a suspect who had been overlooked for years, Raul Ayala. Raul Ayala, a man whose name had long been whispered in the shadows of the neighborhood, turned out to be living just a stone's throw away from Edna's home. Once seen as a quiet, unassuming neighbor, Ayala's turbulent past and elusive behavior began to cast a dark light on his true identity. As investigators dug deeper, they discovered that his record, filled with minor run-ins and troubling hints, had gone unnoticed by the community for far too long. With every new piece of re-examined evidence, the path to justice grew clearer. Have you ever wondered how close the perpetrator of a terrible crime could be, hiding in plain sight, right next door, until modern technology finally brought him to light? The arrest of Raul Ayala sent shockwaves through Bay Shore. Imagine a crisp winter morning punctuated by the roar of police vehicles converging on familiar streets, a moment when decades of unanswered pain began to give way to the promise of resolution. As the news spread, media outlets exploded with detailed reports, expert interviews, and emotional testimonies from those still mourning Edna. The public was riveted, and with each new revelation, questions mounted. Is this the long-awaited vindication that Edna's family has been yearning for? Can modern forensic science restore a community's shattered trust in its justice system? Even as the arrest brought a measure of closure, the emotional scars of losing the 88-year-old Edna remained deeply etched in the hearts of those who knew her. For her family, she was far more than a victim. She was the heart and soul of their lives, a loving matriarch whose gentle guidance and unwavering support had shaped generations. In intimate recollections, her daughter remembered the comforting sounds of family dinners and the joyful laughter that once filled their home, now replaced by a void that time alone could not heal. For the entire community, Edna's memory became a symbol of both profound loss and enduring love, a poignant reminder that behind every forensic report lies a human story, rich with emotion and deserving of relentless pursuit of truth. This case ignited a broader conversation about the evolution of forensic science and the transformative power of modern technology. Every chip of evidence, from a smudged fingerprint to the tiniest trace of DNA, played a crucial role in rewriting a story that had long been silenced. Critics argued that a more aggressive initial response might have spared years of uncertainty, while others marveled at how modern innovation transformed silent evidence into a clarion call for accountability. What if every unsolved mystery could one day be unraveled with the tools we have today? How do we harness these breakthroughs to ensure that no community is ever left in darkness? Throughout this unfolding drama, the interplay between human determination and scientific innovation was undeniable. In cutting-edge forensic labs, teams of dedicated professionals re-examined and reinterpreted every shred of evidence with unparalleled accuracy. The breakthrough in Edna's case was not just a victory for technology, it was a testament to the resilience of those who refuse to let a story remain unfinished. It reminds us that even in our darkest moments, the pursuit of truth can light the way forward, offering hope to families and communities alike. As you follow this riveting journey, consider the deeper questions it raises. How do we ensure that justice is never left waiting in the shadows? What lessons must we learn to protect the vulnerable and prevent such tragedies from recurring? And how can the unyielding power of modern forensic science inspire us to rethink our approach to unresolved mysteries? These questions lie at the heart of this saga, a call to action for all who believe in accountability, compassion, and the relentless search for truth. This story is not simply a recounting of a cold case finally solved. It is a rallying cry that challenges us to look deeper into our justice systems, to demand better for our communities, and to honor every victim with the pursuit of truth. Edna Schubert's legacy endures as a symbol of both profound sorrow and the resilient strength of community. Her story reminds us that every life is invaluable, and that behind every case number lies a deeply human narrative, deserving of empathy and relentless investigation. Have you ever wondered how a single drop of DNA could rewrite history? How can modern innovation transform a community's grief into a beacon of hope? And what does it take to honor a life lost by ensuring that no stone is left unturned in the quest for justice? These powerful questions invite us to reflect on the balance between technological progress and human empathy, urging us to never stop seeking answers. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey through one of Suffolk County's most haunting, yet ultimately transformative cases. If you found this story as compelling as we did, please subscribe, like, share, and turn on post notifications to get your daily dose of juicy true crime and mystery. Your support fuels our relentless pursuit of truth in every story we uncover. Stay curious, stay safe. Imagine this. It's midnight in a quiet North Carolina town. The streets lie silent under a moonless sky, but beneath the calm, secrets fester, and a hidden darkness is about to shatter lives forever. In a modest home, a man whose past was defined by honor and sacrifice is about to vanish, leaving behind a trail of mystery, betrayal, and a haunting question. How did trust turn into terror? This is the story of Clinton Bonnell, a retired Green Beret who dedicated his life to serving others, and the woman who once shared his dreams, Shana Cloud. What began as a promise of a new beginning ended in a nightmare that has gripped an entire community. Are you ready to uncover the shocking twists behind this case? Before we proceed, hit subscribe, ring the notification bell, and share your theories in the comments below. Your insights might help reveal hidden details in this baffling story. It was on an unusually cold winter night in North Carolina, a night when the quiet streets of Fayetteville, typically untroubled, seemed to hold their breath, that the unimaginable unfolded. In a modest, unassuming home, tucked away from the bustle of the city, a life built on honor and sacrifice was about to be forever shattered. Clinton Bonnell, known to many simply as Clint, had spent most of his life serving his country with unwavering dedication. A retired Green Beret, he had fought for freedom on distant battlefields and earned the respect of his comrades with every medal pinned to his chest. Clint retired from the Army on December 31st, 2024, as a Special Forces Medical Sergeant. His military awards and decorations include the Army Commendation Medal, Army Achievement Medal with 2 OLCs, USN Commendation Medal, Meritorious Unit Command, Iraq Campaign Medal with Campaign Star, Non-Commissioned Officer Professional Development Ribbon, 3rd Award, Army Service Ribbon, Special Forces Tab, Military Freefall Parachutist Badge, and Parachutist Badge. Yet, as the days turned to weeks after his retirement, Clint sought a new purpose. Enrolling in the Physician Assistant program at Methodist University, he hoped to bring his discipline and compassion to a world that desperately needed healing. Have you ever wondered how a hero's legacy can be so abruptly tarnished? Friends and family recalled his gentle nature, his unwavering sense of duty, and his commitment to making a difference in the lives of those around him. But beneath this portrait of valor, dark currents were stirring. In the weeks leading up to that fateful night, whispers of marital discord began to circulate. Clint had met with a respected lawyer on the evening of January 27th, 2025, a meeting that, according to those close to him, marked the beginning of the end of his marriage. Later accounts revealed that during this confidential discussion, Clint was preparing to file for divorce from his wife, Shana Cloud. What would drive a person to the breaking point? For Clint, it was a painful yet resolute decision born out of years of silent suffering. For Shana, however, that revelation ignited a chain of events that would spiral into unimaginable tragedy. The following morning, January 28, 2025, brought an unsettling stillness. Clint, who was expected to attend his first class as a student at Methodist University, simply did not appear. Can you imagine the shock of his friends and professors as the hours turned into a day with no sign of him? Calls were made, concern grew, and soon a well-being check was arranged. When officers arrived at Clint's home, they found an eerie scene. His personal belongings were undisturbed, his residence appeared untouched, as if he had simply vanished without a trace. What do you think could explain such an inexplicable disappearance? In the ensuing days, the community's anxiety mounted. Neighbors exchanged uneasy glances and whispered speculations. How could a man so steadfast and well-loved simply vanish? The answer came nearly a month later. On February 25, 2025, in a remote area just 3 miles from the couple's home, investigators made a grisly discovery: a dismembered body lying at the edge of a secluded pond. The macabre nature of the scene sent shockwaves through the town and ignited a frenzied investigation by local law enforcement. Does the thought of such a discovery send shivers down your spine? Investigators descended upon the scene with a sense of urgency and determination. Forensic teams, clad in protective gear and working under the harsh glow of portable floodlights, meticulously documented every detail. They noted with grim precision that the dismemberment of Clint's body had been executed with surgical accuracy. Every cut and incision appeared measured and deliberate, as if designed to obliterate his identity beyond recognition. No signs of forced entry or overt struggle were found at the couple's home, suggesting that the attack was not a random act of violence, but a deeply personal betrayal. As forensic experts labored at the remote pond, their painstaking work began to reveal startling details. Dr. Elena Morales, the lead forensic pathologist assigned to the case, later explained in an exclusive interview, "The wounds on Mr. Bonnell were not haphazard. They indicate a level of planning that is rarely seen in spontaneous acts of violence." Her detailed sketches, shown on screen, revealed wound patterns, precise incisions, and an estimated timeline that pointed to a prolonged, methodical attack. Clint had been struck multiple times in rapid succession, his body bearing the indelible marks of both a fierce struggle and an emotionless, calculated determination. What do you think could drive someone to act with such cold precision? At the same time, investigators turned their attention to the digital realm. Shana Cloud's mobile phone emerged as a critical piece of evidence. Forensic digital analysts extracted a trove of data from the device, revealing a series of cryptic search queries and unusual app usage that hinted at a premeditated plan to avoid detection. Among these were searches for forensic countermeasures, how to avoid fingerprint detection, and even obscure forum discussions on erasing digital footprints after a violent crime. Could these digital clues be the missing pieces in this dark puzzle? A breakthrough came when detectives cross-referenced the GPS data from Shana's phone with surveillance footage from nearby businesses. Grainy yet unmistakable, the footage captured a figure clad in dark clothing, moving with determined precision near the remote pond on the night in question. The timestamps on the video perfectly aligned with the discovery of Clint's remains. Local cell tower logs further corroborated this evidence, leaving little doubt that Shana had been in the vicinity at the crucial moment. How significant do you think this digital evidence is in sealing the case? While the digital and forensic evidence mounted, investigators also sought to understand the human element of this tragedy. Neighbors recalled gradual changes in Shana's behavior over recent months. One longtime resident, speaking on the condition of anonymity, observed, "Shana used to be a quiet, almost unassuming presence. Lately, though, she's been withdrawn and irritable, as if something was steadily breaking her spirit." Others recalled overhearing fragments of heated arguments from behind closed doors, voices raised in anger, hints of resentment, and a palpable tension that now seemed to echo through every detail of the investigation. What do you think these changes might indicate about her state of mind? In the midst of this mounting evidence, the investigation began to reconstruct a narrative of domestic collapse. Clint's decision to leave the marriage, though painful, had been met with an explosive mix of betrayal and despair on Shana's part. Her personal communications, text messages, emails, and social media posts revealed a woman caught in a vortex of conflicting emotions. Some messages spoke of regret and sorrow, while others were laced with venom and an overwhelming desire for control. Each digital footprint offered a glimpse into a turbulent inner life that may have driven her to commit the unthinkable. Could the emotional torment of a failing marriage really lead to such drastic measures? Detective Marcus Reynolds, a veteran with over 20 years on the force, summed it up during one of the daily briefings. The precision of these digital footprints, when matched with surveillance footage and GPS data, leaves little room for doubt about her presence at the scene. His words resonated with the entire investigative team, solidifying the case against Shana Cloud. Law enforcement officials then worked around the clock. A dedicated task force was formed, comprising detectives, forensic specialists, and digital analysts, all united in the relentless pursuit of truth. Every piece of evidence, no matter how small, was meticulously gathered. Officers obtained search warrants for Shana's home and vehicle, securing everything from personal belongings to digital devices. This unprecedented coordinated effort was a testament to how determined investigators were to uncover every detail of that fateful night. During one pivotal briefing, Detective Reynolds recalled, "We had just finished correlating the digital data with surveillance footage. It became painfully clear. Every step she took that night was calculated. Our devices never forget, and neither does the evidence." How powerful is it to know that every digital interaction can become the key to solving a crime? Witnesses also added their voices to the growing chorus of evidence. A local store clerk, who had seen a woman matching Shana's description near the pond that night, described the figure as unsettling and out of place, almost as if she knew exactly where she was going. These first-hand accounts, combined with the overwhelming digital and forensic data, left little doubt that Shana Cloud was intimately involved in the events that led to Clint's tragic death. As the layers of evidence continued to accumulate, the investigation shifted from suspicion to certainty. By March 28, 2025, after weeks of exhaustive work, the case against Shana Cloud reached its critical juncture. In a move that reverberated throughout Fayetteville and beyond, Shana was arrested. The arrest was executed with precision and professionalism, ensuring that her rights were upheld even as she was taken into custody. Now, she faced charges of first-degree murder and concealment of death, charges that carried the possibility of capital punishment if she were convicted. The courtroom that followed became a stage for a dramatic reckoning. Every piece of evidence was presented with painstaking detail, from forensic reports that described the meticulous dismemberment of Clint's body to digital logs that traced Shana's every movement on that fateful night. Forensic experts testified about the chilling precision of the wounds, noting that they left little room for the possibility of an accidental or impulsive act. Digital experts demonstrated, with clear visuals, how Shana's mobile phone activity aligned perfectly with the timeline of events. The prosecution built an airtight case that was as damning as it was tragic. What do you think the jury will decide when confronted with such overwhelming evidence? In the midst of the courtroom drama, emotions ran high. Families who once admired Clint now struggled with an unbearable mix of grief and disbelief. Witnesses recounted the moments leading up to Clint's disappearance, describing him as optimistic, determined, and full of hope for a fresh start in healthcare. Their heartfelt testimonies served as a poignant reminder of the light that had been extinguished by the darkness of betrayal and loss. Throughout the trial, experts continued to shed further light on the evidence. Dr. Morales' detailed forensic analysis, coupled with incontrovertible digital data, painted a picture of a crime that was meticulously premeditated. Although the defense argued that the evidence was circumstantial, urging the jury to consider alternative explanations, each testimony and every piece of data reinforced the narrative of Shana's calculated involvement. Does the evidence, in your view, leave any room for doubt? Between the hours of testimony and the quiet moments in the courtroom, the nation watched with bated breath. News outlets, podcasts, and online forums buzzed with discussions. Hashtags like Now Cloud Case, Now Justice for Clint, and Fayetteville Murder trended across social media, reflecting deep public interest and emotional investment in a case that challenged conventional notions of trust and betrayal. Detective Reynolds later remarked, "We're not just looking at numbers or digital logs. We're looking at lives that were forever altered. Every piece of evidence, every witness statement adds another layer to a story that is as tragic as it is complex." His statement encapsulated the essence of this investigation, a relentless pursuit of truth, powered by both cutting-edge technology and the raw realities of human emotion. For the families involved, every revelation was a double-edged sword. They were offered glimpses into the painstaking work of the investigators, yet each new detail underscored the enormity of their loss. Clint Burnell's legacy, as a soldier, student, and beloved individual, had been marred by a betrayal that defied comprehension. And for Shana Cloud, the path ahead was laden with legal battles, public scrutiny, and the inescapable burden of a decision that irrevocably changed her life. As the trial continued, the true crime community remained on edge. Viewers across the country engaged passionately with every update, sharing theories, asking probing questions, and demanding accountability. Discussions spanned forensic minutiae to broader debates about marital strife and the psychological factors that can drive a person to commit such heinous acts. What do you believe truly motivated Shana Cloud? Share your thoughts below. Every theory helps us piece together this complex puzzle. Before we move forward to the next chapter of this unfolding saga, be sure to subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell. Every like, share, and comment not only supports our work, but also helps spread awareness of the intricate hidden truths behind cases like these. As the wheels of justice continue to turn and attorneys prepare for the next phase of trial proceedings, one thing remains certain: the Shana Cloud case is far from over. In the coming days, We will bring you further revelations from the courtroom, additional expert testimonies, and more in-depth analysis of the evidence that has irrevocably altered a community's sense of security and trust. This is a story where technology and human emotion collide, where every digital footprint and meticulously documented detail plays a role in the relentless pursuit of truth. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of a case that has already left an indelible mark on true crime history. Share your theories below, engage with our community, and remember, justice is a puzzle, and every piece matters. Stay curious, stay safe.